Toby was different. He knew it, and everyone else did too. It wasn't just his messy brown hair or the way his clothes never seemed to fit right. It was something else, something he couldn't explain. It was like a storm raging inside him, a power he couldn't control. One day, it happened. Toby was playing basketball when the ball slipped out of his hand. It flew with unnatural speed, smashing through the backboard. Everyone stared in shock. Toby felt a chill run down his spine. He knew this was no ordinary accident. Later that night, strange symbols appeared on his arm, glowing with an eerie light. They were unfamiliar, yet felt deeply connected to him. Fear and confusion flooded him. What was happening to him? Was he going crazy? As days turned into weeks, Toby's powers grew stronger and more unpredictable. Objects moved with his thoughts. Electricity crackled around him. He tried to hide it, to pretend everything was normal, but it was getting harder. It felt like a bomb about to explode. One stormy evening, a mysterious woman with piercing blue eyes appeared at Toby's doorstep. She called herself Celeste, and she knew about his powers. Celeste told him a story that would change his life forever. She spoke of a prophecy, a war demon destined to end the eternal battle between angels and demons. This demon, born with unimaginable power, would either bring peace or total destruction. And according to Celeste, that demon was Toby. Toby was both terrified and strangely thrilled. All his life, he felt different, an outcast. Now he knew why. But the weight of the prophecy, the fate of the world resting on his shoulders was terrifying. Celeste explained the war between angels and demons was fought in secret, hidden from human eyes. Both sides were after him, wanting to control his power for their own purposes. She warned him to trust no one, especially not the government, who were already watching him. Toby was thrust into a world he never knew existed, a world of celestial beings and ancient prophecies. His ordinary life was gone, replaced by a destiny he never asked for. From that day forward, Toby's life became a terrifying chase. Shadows followed him, whispering his name. Strange people watched him from afar. He couldn't tell who was an angel, who was a demon, and who was just a government agent. One moment, he'd be running from monstrous creatures with leathery wings, the next, dodging black SUVs filled with men in black suits. His powers surged erratically, causing chaos wherever he went. He became a phantom, drifting from town to town, never staying in one place for too long. Fear became his constant companion, gnawing at his sanity. He missed his old life, his friends, even the boring routine of school. He just wanted to be normal again, but that seemed like a distant dream now. The pressure mounted, pushing him closer to the edge. He couldn't control his powers, couldn't escape the hunters. He was a hunted animal, his only hope to somehow master the storm within before it consumed him entirely. One day, cornered in a small town, Toby's powers erupted with terrifying force. Buildings crumbled, cars flew through the air, the sky crackled with raw energy. He had become the very chaos he feared, a destructive force he couldn't control. As the dust settled, Toby looked upon the devastation he'd wrought, horror flooding his eyes. He hadn't wanted this, never wanted to hurt anyone, but his powers were too much, a raging beast he couldn't tame. The incident made headlines. Teenage boy causes unexplained disaster, the newspapers screamed. The government intensified its efforts, classifying him as a weapon of mass destruction. Toby became public enemy number one, feared and misunderstood. Exhausted and filled with despair, Toby realized he couldn't run forever. He needed help, someone to teach him how to control his powers, but who could he trust? Who would even believe his story? As Toby hid, nursing his wounds, both physical and emotional, a new player entered the game. A government agency, realizing the futility of brute force, decided to try a different approach. They sent a woman named Dr. Emily Carter, a psychologist specializing in trauma and gifted individuals. Dr. Carter tracked Toby down, not with weapons or threats, but with kindness and understanding. She listened to his story, his fears, his confusion. For the first time since this all began, Toby felt seen, heard, not as a monster, but as a scared kid. Dr. Carter explained that the government had made a mistake, mistaking his powers for a threat they needed to contain. They were wrong. They saw his potential, his desire to do good. They wanted to help him control his powers, not to exploit him, but to protect humanity. Toby was wary, but Dr. Carter's sincerity was hard to deny. She offered him a place at a special facility, a safe haven where he could train and learn to control his powers. It was a chance to turn his life around, to become the hero he was destined to be. With a mix of trepidation and hope, Toby accepted Dr. Carter's offer. He was taken to a secret facility where he met others like him, people with extraordinary abilities. For the first time, he didn't feel alone, a freak. He was part of something bigger, something important. Under the guidance of experienced mentors, Toby began rigorous training. He learned to harness his powers, to control the storm within. It was a long, arduous journey, filled with setbacks and frustrations. But Toby persevered, driven by a desire to protect the world and honor the prophecy that made him who he was. He learned about the history of the war between angels and demons, the delicate balance they maintained. He realized his role was not to choose sides, but to be a force of peace, a bridge between two warring factions. He was the war demon, but he would define what that meant. His journey was far from over, but for the first time, Toby felt a sense of purpose, of control. He was no longer a scared boy running from his powers. He was becoming the war demon, a protector of humanity, a beacon of hope in a world teetering on the brink.